Welcome to TC Daily, the technology show brought to you by Tech Central. If you're new to these parts, do subscribe to us. Our show is available on YouTube at youtube.com/TechCentral. You can also, of course, get it on Tech Central's website, which is techcentral.co.za. While you're there, why not subscribe to our daily newsletter? You can get that at techcentral.co.za/newsletter, and you will get the latest news, local and international, delivered to your inbox at 5 a.m. every morning. Now, I'm very pleased on this scorching hot early summer's afternoon, to welcome one of the best known figures in South Africa's ICT industry to the show, and that's Jonas Bogoshi, the CEO of BCX. Jonas, it's good to see you. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Duncan, and it's good to see you. It's good to see you after a long time.
It has been a while. Definitely since before
COVID?
Before lockdowns.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We've always had this online, so it is great to meet face to face.
Absolutely,
again,
good to see you. I must ask you before we get started, does the name Business Connection still exist, or has it been truncated to BCX now?
Truncated to BCX now.
Okay,
yeah,
so
that's right.
Business Connection has fallen away.
It's fallen away, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously the trading company see it as Business Connection, but in terms of how we represent ourselves in the market, it's just BCX.
Just BCX.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was trying to think before our interview today, when I first met you. I've interacted with you in a range of roles in the ICT sector over the years, and I was trying to remember whether it was, I think it was before, was it a T-Systems? Were you at T-Systems at one point?
Yeah, but I thought we met before. I mean, at some stage I was with Cisco Systems.
Cisco.
Then I went to CETA, then I went to Gijima, T-Systems, and EMC, and now here.
Right.
Yeah. So I've been around.
Quite a varied career you've had in the sector.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Seen it from all angles.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, from customer side, from OEM side, and absolutely.
I remember back in those early days, it probably was at Cisco actually, we chatted about your early history, your upbringing, and how you came into the ICT sector. And I recall there was a fascinating story there, but I'm afraid, Jonas, I'm advancing in the years. I've forgotten the details.
Okay. Yeah.
Just remind me, you had quite an interesting upbringing. Tell me a bit about it and how you came to the position you're in today.
So I got into IT industry by mistake, actually.
Okay.
I grew up in the north of Pretoria, and I wanted to be a lecturer in mathematics.
Okay.
So I went to UCT to study mathematics, and when I was there, I got to we got to use computers actually in one part of the degree. We were using in the applied mathematics. Those days we used to use Fortran and all other languages, and so I got introduced into computers, and I thought to myself, this is fascinating. Following year, I took a first year course in computer science, and I continued, and that's why I'm here today.
Right.
But otherwise, it's something that I never knew anything about. I read about it as a youngster, and I always said this machine is fascinating, but I never got to touch it until I went to university.
Fascinating. So how did you get your start in the industry? What was your first job?
My first job was actually with IBM. I started there as a systems engineer.
So many people started their careers
exactly, at IBM. Yeah. So systems engineer, and actually when I started there, I had an option to join then a company called Anderson Consulting. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, yes, I
Arthur
remember.
Anderson.
It became Accenture.
Which became Accenture today. Yeah, so I had an option between that and the IBM. I took IBM. I did our systems engineer, looking up those days, a bank called United Building Society, UBS, United Building Society, which then became part of ABSA.
ABSA, yes.
Yeah, that's right. And then I moved into sales, moved back to Cape Town, and moved all the way to all these companies that I mentioned. So from there I went to Cisco. From Cisco, I went to CETA. From CETA, I went to run Gijima, then T-Systems. Then I went to run EMC in the country, which was then bought by Dell. I had a stint then, and I came to Business Connection, or BCX. Yeah, that's right.
Did you have a natural aptitude for the management side of things, the sales and management side of things? Because I mean, you started out in a sort of, you wanted to study applied mathematics. You wanted to become a programmer, I take it, if you were looking at
later on, yes, I wanted to be a programmer. When I was doing my degree, moving from maths to computer science, I wanted to be a programmer. So I never thought I will move into a management part of the business at all. But I remember those days at IBM, they had a luxury where they get new graduates, and you take about 6 months training you, because what you got from university was not quite usable immediately.
Right.
So I was in one of this training, and they used to get people to come and talk to us about the products and whatever. And there was a guy who came there to talk about what he was doing. He said, and I still remember his name. His name is Iqbal Hasim. Still remember him. He said, my name is Iqbal Hasim. I'm a sales guy. I don't know how these machines work. I just sell them. I just loved him, right? I just thought I like this guy. So then I moved into sales, and from sales into sales management. And ultimately, I thought to myself, I like everybody else. As you grow up now, when you're in your 30s, you think, where is my life? And one of the things I wanted to do is I want to be a CEO of a company. So I started talking about what are the competencies I need to build to become a CEO of a company. And fortunate that it happened. Absolutely. So I'm fortunate.
Yeah. And do you still have an affinity today for the technical side of things? Are you a tinkerer? Do you?
No.
No. Okay.
If there's anything I still have affinity for is mathematics, right?
Okay.
I still go and solve problems. I just enjoy that. So now and again I go onto YouTube and subscribe to all of them. I still like.
Right.
But technology, I'm not tinkering now. I think because I've seen it now, I've got people who understand it much more than I do, much more than I will do. So I've moved on that one.
Where did this love of mathematics come from? Was it from your parents?
Well, I don't know. My father and mother were not educated. So my mother was a domestic worker actually, and my father was just a laborer. So, but there was something about maths. I just had affinity for mathematics.
Okay.
So especially
at school.
at school. So when I went to high school and started dealing with geometry, I remember I used to tell people that when it comes to geometry and we used to solve problems, so from theorems to prove that this angle and this angle are equal. For some reason, even without proving it, I'll look at things and say, I know they are equal, even before I can tell you why I think they're equal. So there was something about maths that I just loved. And when I went to university, I had a good professor, Professor John Webb, and the two of us used to write articles that were one of them was published internationally. Which is the origin of maths in Africa. So that's what I did. And also I wrote, I used to create maths problems to be sent to high schools for students in Form 5 and Form 4 to solve.
Okay.
I used to, I loved mathematics then, and I still have a love for it.
And do you have kids? Are they taking a similar interest in maths?
No, they don't. No, they don't. I've got 3 kids, and they don't like maths. And I try to force them into mathematics. No, they don't. No, they're not interested. Not interested at all.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, let's talk a bit about BCX. How long have you been CEO now?
So it's just about 4 years now since
4 years already.
4 years. It's a long time, Duncan.
Yeah,
it's a long time.
Flies.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's right. Yeah. So I came in as a chief revenue officer, and after 2 months I took over the CEO.
Yes.
So back in 2018.
2018.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think the pandemic has kind of warped time for a lot of people.
It has.
You think 4 years? It can't have been that long.
Exactly. So we have a CFO who was with us, left us, and came back. And every time I talk to him, the 2 years that he was away, I can't even count. It's like they never existed, of the pandemic. That's right. Yeah.
All right. So tell us, how's BCX doing? I mean, I see the results. It's not as many listed IT services companies today as there were a few years ago.
That's right.
But there are a few of them listed, and BCX, obviously, we get insight into the numbers because it is a subsidiary of a listed company. How's the company doing? I see other companies seem to be struggling. The economy's tough. I think BCX has been facing similar challenges over recent years.
Obviously,
what's it look like?
Obviously, what I will not do is to tell you the current results. We are in the close period, so that I won't do. So I'll refer to Q1 and the full year of last year.
Sure.
I think that will give a sense. So if I were to talk mainly about, let's talk about enterprise ICT companies in South Africa. You're right, there are very few of us now left, right? Some of them have been bought, some of them have been delisted, etc. So you don't quite get a sense of how we are performing. I'll talk about BCX, but if you talk about the industry itself, if you're a large company like us, your performance correlate the GDP cycle, right? You correlate the GDP, so because you focus on large enterprises and their growth and whatever depends on the GDP.
Yeah.
So whilst there is a little bit of improvement with the corporates now spending, it's still muted in my view, and it's because of their pedestrian economic growth, right? It's still quite pedestrian, so it is not at the level where we want it to be. However, if you look at where we are, there's a number of areas where things are getting better. We'll have seen in the BCX results back in Q1, So which is April, 3 months, April, May, June.
Sure.
You'll have seen that the IT part of the business is growing, and it is growing because there is more investment by the corporates. So there were a couple of things that were affected during COVID. One was we had a problem with many companies slowed down investments, right? They did not want to spend because they're not sure what the future looked like. That affected us and many companies. There was also a problem with global, the constraints in the chip shortage in the world that affected most of us. But after that, we can see some growth. So we see some growth, let's say, from BCX. So we saw some growth in IT, primarily in hardware and software. So that was growing because there was a pent-up demand, and people working from home, etc., and the easing of the constraints in logistics globally. So we saw a nice growth coming out of that. That's the first one. The second part, it's there is growth definitely in the software and applications. Most of our customers, most of the OEMs, are moving applications into the cloud, and there's a conversion by a number of people moving to that. You'll have seen that SAP, you've got about until 2027 or so to migrate. So many people are doing. So we can see a growth in that, and you saw lots of people moving into Azure in terms of Office 365. So that's another part of the growth. But there is no question that the cloud itself is seeing phenomenal growth. We were lucky to see that growth on our own cloud. We are not very strong on public cloud. We'll talk a little bit about Alibaba later on, but on our own cloud, we saw growth. Behind what the industry is. We saw a growth of between 12 and 13%, but industry about 30% or so. We'll talk about that. And then we saw growth in cyber security. That was for us more than 50% growth.
Wow.
From a low base, though, we partnered with an organization globally that really has a strong capability in managed security.
Who is that?
So Cyber Reason, based in Boston. So very, very strong company. There were some companies in South Africa that were hacked. Some of them were in the media. Yes. I won't obviously mention them, but we raised our hand so that we can help, and their technology was really incredible for us to be able to help companies so they don't have to pay ransom. But we have something in BCX that's unique to other organizations, right? Is that we inherited voice revenues of voice solutions from Telkom.
On the business side.
On the business side, right? Absolutely on the business side. And not more mobile voice, but a fixed voice, right? The legacy voice, etc. So that legacy voice, when we started and when I started, it was clear that voice is going to decline.
Yes.
Many people were
been doing so for years already before that.
Absolutely, it was doing that. I mean, when I joined the previous year, it has just lost R1 billion in terms of top line, right? Wow. And those are very, very highly profitable services. So we decided we're going to have to disrupt ourselves. We can't allow this to continue. We gave ourselves 5 years to get out of that, right? We had actual options of 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years. And when we model it 1 year, and by moving, meaning that we either give people total discounts and move it to the minutes that the cost per minute we're looking for, or we move them into next generation voice over IP and the hosted voice, etc. And when we did that, for 1 year and 3 year options, the EBITDA impact on both BCX and the group were too big for us to swallow. We decided we'll do it over 5 years. So if I look at it, we are now in the 3rd year of that, right? We're almost getting to a tail end of it. And if I look at us on a data side, we are probably about 80% now next generation. By the end of this year, we'll have very little left in terms of that, right?
When you say next generation, you've been moving off copper.
Well, moving off copper, that's one, but moving off from MPLS as an example, all those services that were really profitable, now moving people to SD-WAN, etc. So so I'm talking about both from infrastructure of copper to fiber, absolutely. So moving people to fiber and also moving them from MPLS. So we are on a data side. We will be by the end of this financial year, we should be almost done. Maybe if there's anything 5% left or so, right, which is great. The only problem is that those were very highly profitable revenues. So for every rent that you lose on legacy, whether we are talking about copper to fiber or MPLS to SD-WAN, for every rent that you migrate, you must win 3 more to remain still. That's a nightmare because it is quite big for you to do that, right? On the voice side, we still have a bulk of the revenue in that. However, because we have given our customers some good prices, so the price points allow them to keep. But also in the next coming 2 years, want to get out of that. So that's where we are. So overall, the performance, the growth in IT was not good enough to offset the decline. But I think the way things are going, we are going in the right direction. Yeah, without giving the details, obviously.
No, sure. So, Jonas, you hinted at some at what's happening in the cloud space. You spoke about the growth that's happening there, but you made a very important announcement just a couple of weeks ago about a partnership that you've signed with Alibaba Cloud. Tell us a bit about that partnership agreement, how it came about, and what it means for BCX.
Yeah, that's right, and you're right, Duncan. It's quite exciting for us to sign this partnership. It's something that took a long time to sign, but if I go back, we were not the only ones that Alibaba was looking at in the country. They looked at a number of people. But let me talk to you about what we signed, and then we'll go into details little bit, right? So what we signed last week was we signed to be the Alibaba exclusive partner in South Africa. What that means, or sorry, Alibaba Cloud, right? What that means is that we represent Alibaba Cloud in South Africa.
Alibaba, let me just take a step back for a moment. Alibaba Cloud is the cloud services division of Alibaba Group
yes.
Holdings, which is the giant Chinese e-commerce company.
That's correct. Absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
So it's kind of like Amazon has Amazon Web Services, and Alibaba Cloud is to Alibaba what AWS is to Amazon.
Exactly the same. Exactly the same. So it is like AWS what it is here to Amazon. Yes. So exactly the same thing. So now we will represent them in a country, which means that whoever sells or want to sell the Alibaba products and services, they buy through us because now we are the exclusive partner. So that's the first phase that we signed. People can sell it now. Even now, we don't have data centers yet. They are still in other countries. The closest one will be the UK and Germany, right? You can still do that. You remember even some of the hyperscalers, before they came in, you can still consume from that, right? So that's the first phase. Second phase is to bring the data centers now into the country.
Oh, yes.
The 2 availability zones, to bring them into the country. We are busy with that section. There will be some co-investment between us and them, and when the time is right, we'll announce when we are bringing them into the country.
Are you building new infrastructure to do that, or is it going to be hosted inside BCX's cloud data centers?
We are looking at that. We are looking at that, and it might be that they are within BCX data centers, or one will be in BCX, one somewhere else, depending on whether we're looking at redundancy and so there's a model that we are looking at, right? We as BCX have got about 10 data centers, including some that are owned by Telkom. So 10 in total. It's about 14 or so percent lettable space, if I can put it that way. So even though it's 10, they are not that big, right? They are big for the kind of things we do, but for a hyperscaler, you need slightly more. We do have space for one that we can put. So that's what we will do, and we're hoping to announce that in due course. But we are busy with that. You can imagine it's a co-investment between us, Alibaba, and other people. So we'll announce that when that is right. But we are quite pleased because now it will give people options in the country.
Yeah,
I must say that it doesn't mean that we will not sell the services from the other hyperscalers. They are core to us. What we have seen out there is many customers, enterprise customers, are going for multi-cloud.
Yes.
So we expect that they will want to consume some of those services from other 3 of the hyperscalers that we in the country.
Understood. Why do you see corporates potentially using Alibaba Cloud versus some of the other cloud providers in the market? What advantages does it bring?
Yeah. So we looked at 2 things really that made us decide on this partnership with Alibaba. So on one side, if you look at Alibaba and other providers, whether it's Google, AWS, and Azure, at a compute layer, they are almost the same. All right, there are some that, so if you look at the reports, I think all of those, all of those will be in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, if I talk about those four. Gartner Magic Quadrant, and if you look at Forrester, when they analyze them in terms of their compute, in terms of security, in terms of their networking, they are there or thereabouts, right? However, what is different with Alibaba? It's what Alibaba has done is over and above sell this infrastructure. They now took all the applications that build Alibaba and make them available to customers. So the same applications that drive that huge Alibaba.com, the e-commerce part, they are now selling to customers, which is what we represent in the country. So as an example, Alibaba has got applications in retail, whether it's the onboarding of customers, whether it's O2O, offline, online, whether it's omni-channel, all those solutions that they use to drive their business, they're making available to customers. That helps us because some of our customers are looking at all those solutions either in the whole or components, and they want to do that. They have a huge presence in financial services. So they run applications, anti-money laundering, as an example, in anti-fraud, etc. So all of those solutions, 200 all applications are now available for us to take to market. And that's what was of interest to us. So over and above the infrastructure, which the good things come at a much better price point, it's all of these applications that really drive digital transformation. That's what we are bringing them to the country.
Just a last question on cloud. A chat I had with Sipho Maseko, the former CEO of Telkom, some time ago. He spoke about the potentially restructuring BCX's cloud assets to become more independent, more open access, if that's the right terminology, in future. Is there any thinking around that? I know that there's been a lot of debate about vendor neutral or not vendor neutral, carrier neutral data centers versus data centers that are owned, in BCX's case, ultimately owned by a telecommunications operator. What's the strategic thinking around how you position these assets going forward?
Yeah. So what Sip was talking about then is to separate the cloud part from the data center or the building part of it, right?
Yes.
So that you've got another operator like like anybody who own Terraco, as an example, owning a data center, right? And there were reasons why that he was thinking about it, and the reason is, yes, to separate the two and make it available to other people. For us as BCX, let me just answer the question. Where are we on that? We haven't quite finalized it yet. It's an option that we are looking at. It's presented to the board, and the board is making a call as to whether this is feasible or not, right? But we have presented a number of options. Because one option, as an example, is that we hive it out altogether and get an external investor in that. Another option will be that they go to Gyro, which is the property part of Telkom. The other part is that we form an SPV, and there's a number of shareholders, BCX, Gyro, and somebody else. So all those options will still be looked at. But if you look at it from a BCX point of view, is that if we were to take a rent in when a customer when a customer has got a service in a data center, and when I say rent that they pay, so one will be the core location, which is typically what data centers charge, so a floor space basically, and you look at the computing resources, and you look at managed services. All of that, if that is a rent, about 8 cents to 13 cents go to this floor space. Actually, with a new cloud, it drops from 8 cents to about maybe 5 cents or so, because now you can pack more computing power. So obviously, where we drive value is on anything above that. So that's where we are focusing. However, it's not something that we are not interested in. We need data center. We've got 3 of the 4 tier 4 data centers on a continent. There are only 4 of them, and we've got 3. and they're important for our clients. So our clients will want to have that higher availability, right? When you have a tier 4 data center, you've got 4 and 5 nines and 99.9995, and everything is redundant, and they're looking for that, right? So they're important for us to provide a service. But once we make that call, then we'll come back to the market and explain how we're going to do it. But it's something that we've got a new board, so they'll look at that and then make a call.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I presume a similar discussion is happening around the potential for bringing in a strategic equity partner for BCX as a whole.
Yeah, that's correct. And if I can put the context of that, so one, it's why the partner, and what is it for BCX, what is it for Telkom. If you look at the from BCX point of view, right, we've got 3 types of partners. So one will be a transactional partner. They're not unimportant, they're important. Here will be people that we do business with on a daily basis. It will most of the OEMs. We skill ourselves in their products. We provide services to our customers. So that's one. The second level will be strategic partner. Alibaba falls into that part, right? And the next one, it's a strategic equity partner, where you get somebody to come and buy into BCX. And when we looked at this, we were solving for 3 things. One, we're solving for scale. We're solving for capability and growth. If you look at where the industry is going, a number of us, and you're right, we don't see the results anymore because most companies are not listed.
Yes.
But if we were to look at it, the core of what used to make a typical system integrator, those services are becoming commodity. You need to move into other areas which are really around digital capability. To build scale and capability in that is not easy, right? So we're looking for an SEP, a strategic equity partner, who's got all of those, and that can enable us to grow. So scale, growth, and capability. That's the first thing. From a Telkom point of view, there are 3 things that Telkom is looking for. The first one, it's to unlock value. So for Telkom, if you look at Telkom trading today, right? I don't know what is trading at now, but probably about in the 40s. So we're talking about 20 to about 23 billion market cap, right? The feeling from us and also from the analysis that is undervalued, because the sum of the parts are worth much more than that. So one of these, it's take BCX out and expose the value of this underlying asset, and therefore and unlock value to the shareholders. That's the first thing. The second thing, it's on capital allocation. So if you are a telco, and Telkom is a telco, right? The first things that you look at will be on your fixed in network. That's where we spend most of the money. Then it is on your mobile network that you spend all of the money. So an IT company will be last in line. So if you look at our capital intensity, right, we're at about 3 or 4% capital intensity as BCX, compared to average we are about 3, and compared to an average of about 5 of our competitors or in the industry. We should actually be around 7 or so. So Telkom is looking at it to say, so if I want to allocate capital, I can't do it onto BCX because I'm prioritizing other things, but that will have a detrimental effect. The last thing is, are you looking for growth? If you can get somebody who can help to invest in the core capability in areas that are growing, then even if you own part of it, because they're not going to sell everything, they're still going to have some shareholding, then you are part of a growing asset. So that's what Telkom is looking for. So we have gone quite a long way in that, in terms of identifying what are the reasons and get the board sign off, etc. We put it on hold a little bit when we were executing some of the things like the strategic partnership with Alibaba, and also you have Telkom having other initiatives that they want to synchronize first before we come to this part.
Of course, like the potential MTN transaction, which I'm not going to ask you about today.
Absolutely, you're not going to do that, but all those kind of things. All
those kind of things. Okay, okay, great. I wanted to ask you. You spoke about how the core business of a traditional systems integrator has become somewhat commoditized. We've moved into this cloud era now. The hyperscale cloud providers like Amazon, Alibaba's coming in, and others in this market. How has that changed the business model of a traditional systems integrator, and how relevant is the traditional systems integration model in the IT ecosystem in a market like South Africa? Yeah,
so it's good and bad, right? So on the first part, it's just having a public cloud we have seen high growth in cloud adoption. So that's a good thing for the industry. If you look at, as I said, anything between 34 to 35, 36% CAGR for cloud. That's number one. But on the downside is that if you look at South Africa, about 72% of the market share in cloud is actually by the hyperscalers. And all the system integrators now have 28%. So the other is, and they've got hyperscalers has slightly a disproportionate growth compared to
is this share of revenue you're talking about here?
Share of revenue, yes, that's right. Okay. Yeah, share of revenue in terms of market share of revenue. So all of us have about 28%, and they've got 72%, and they see the highest growth, which is why we wanted to be a hyperscaler ourselves, right? That's one of the reasons why we wanted to be a hyperscaler. So that's one. Or the other part though is the role of a traditional system integrator is now changing in the context of cloud. Yes, you get revenue for helping clients to plan their cloud journey. You get revenues for converting them, or rather migrating them into the cloud. And then you can provide services. But that's it. Compared to in the past, that you would do all of those things and put them in your data center, and therefore you've got a good economies of scale, you've got high margins, and you've got the stickiness and the customer retention. What we are worried about, and it's something that it's just an anxiety of system integrators, is that will these people in future disintermediate me, right, and sell directly, especially to large enterprises, right? So it is good and bad. Hyperscalers have helped to grow the cloud adoption, and it's something that is very good for us. And if you look at who is doing better in that world, typical consulting firms are doing much better, because they build that capability and the assets worldwide of how to consult to create a cloud migration path, how to migrate applications, etc. So they seem to be doing fairly well on that. The system integrators, we are all getting there, but it's not traditionally what we do. We still wanted to have our own assets where we put you on, and that part is gone, right?
Do you need to become more like a consulting company then?
Absolutely right. So there's no question about it. So part of what we are doing within BCX, when I talk about the capabilities, it's we looked at acquiring some of those assets or some of those capabilities outside, but there is no question that you need this. So if I give an example, a large banks, one of them that we went to see even before COVID on the cloud migration. Their first thing was, I just need somebody to help me understand this. Once I do that, I'll come back to you, and then we can migrate. So then you really become a downstream business. You want to be able to really help customers to drive that. So it is important for all of us to build the capability. As BCS, we think it's going to be more than that, right? So we can't be just have a consulting capability. We want to be able to provide downstream business with the applications, etc. And that's why Alibaba played right in the middle of what we thought that this will do. So yes, we can talk about the path, but we can even show you how to do it, and then provide software as a service for you to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did the Alibaba deal come about? Did they approach you? Did you approach them?
Well, we heard that they were looking for somebody.
Okay.
Right? We heard they were looking for somebody, and there were three other companies that they were talking to before us.
Okay.
Yes, there were three other companies, and when we heard this, we decided we are slightly behind. We're going to have to do things differently. So the group CEO, Serame, and I decided that we will go and see them in Dubai and tell them why they need to work with us, right? They were quite clear that, we'll put you in the picture, but understand that we're seeing other people. And we made them aware of what is it that we think we bring to the party. And that is a large client base of large enterprises in South Africa, which is important, right? So we're able to show them what we do with retailers, financial services, with public sector, and we gave them a view of where we think the market is going and why we think this is a good thing. So after a lot of discussions and after them doing some evaluations, they dropped the other three and then they signed with us. Okay. So it was a big fight, but we went for it. Yeah.
Okay, it must have been a very good PowerPoint deck.
It was changing every day. That's right. Yes. Yeah.
I want to ask you a complete change of subject here, but I wanted to ask you a bit about corruption in the South African IT sector.
Yes.
There's been a lot in the news over the last few years. BCX not one of the companies mentioned in the Zondo Commission reports, but some of your competitors featuring quite prominently there. How much of a problem is corruption in the IT sector in this country, particularly in the context of public sector contracts? And if it is a major problem, how does BCX avoid it? What do you do?
What we do to avoid it?
Yeah.
So what I can do is I can't quantify it, but I think we can safely say, if you look at corruption in a country, then the IT industry is not immune to that, right? There was a lot of prominence, obviously, where we are worried about in some of our competitors and the OEMs, right? I think that's one thing that that worries us. So within BCX, we did an analysis of where typically a corruption will happen, right? And typically, because we are part of a listed company, so there is nobody to pay anybody anything, right? So at least from what BCX does, it's difficult for somebody, because we can't stop it, but it's difficult for somebody to go and bribe somebody, right? However, when you partner with SMEs, which is what is required, that's where you have a loophole. So we did a lot of things around that part, and in the last 4 years, we have done quite a lot. So the first thing we did is to make sure that people who deal with public sector are trained. At least they are aware, and they are not only are they aware, they're aware that if they don't follow those rules that they've been trained on, there are consequences. So you can't say, I didn't know that. So that's the first
and
thing.
they know, and they're trained to know what to look for.
What to look for, absolutely right. Then the next thing is training on what is required in terms of PFMA, right? To make sure that when a deal comes through and it's not in line with PFMA, you say no to. That's the most difficult thing. I mean, to give an idea, we had one client where the client was an existing customer of ours. We've got a contract, we're delivering service, and they want to buy something, but they want to use your contract, right? Yeah, they want to buy something, but you want to use your contract. In terms of PFMA, they can't do that, right? Salesperson may be unhappy with that, but no, you can't do that. So even those gray areas, just to understand that the fact that I've got a contract with you, it's a 10-year contract, well, may say 5-year contract, that doesn't mean that they can buy anything from it. So that's the second thing that we do. But then we actually have our compliance division having an eye on the public sector. So look at all the contracts that have to do with SMEs, how often we pay them, what we pay them, how does that compare to what we pay other people outside of public sector. So we've got a compliance officer who looks at that. So it is quite intense, but I think it really has helped us, right? It has helped us. Not only that, the employees in public sector, or those who sell to public sector, everybody, but more specifically those who sell private sector, if they think something they're not so comfortable, they ask the compliance officer, and he will tell them, and he'll tell them this is not allowed, and we do this. So what we have been able to do, which is I think to employees even better, you say to them, you're gonna lose the revenue, you're gonna lose the revenue, but you'll sleep well at night. We're gonna go and look for something else. Yeah, it will affect you in terms of your performance, but I am happy you didn't take it, because in that way you're keeping everybody out of jail. So we've been able to do that, and yes, we are quite happy that in the last in the Zondo Commission we are not mentioned. Not that we didn't have some challenges. I think earlier there was 1 or 2 areas where we are not happy with that, and what we do, it's we found one that we thought there is not something that's not going right here. And we are required by law to actually lodge it and as a possible fraud situation, right? And we do it that way, and the police will then come and investigate, or whoever is responsible. And in that way, it forces us as leaders that if somebody talks about something and I think it's not right, legal will look at it and immediately lodge. So we lodged about 2 of those where we think something is wrong. Nothing came out of it, but at least we're on the safe side to err on the side of caution.
It sounds like it really comes down to the culture of the organization and having zero tolerance for allowing anything like this to take place right through the organization, informing and educating your salespeople and everyone else who's involved in tendering, etc.
Yes.
These are the rules, you do not break them.
It does. It absolutely does, and it's about the tone that we said at the top, right? So if you make it sure that it is not it's something that you don't tolerate, right? For an example, if somebody tells you, and I use public sector as an example, that a minister wants to see you on a tender, and I say no to it, it sets the tone, because I say when it comes to a tender, it's not the responsibility of the minister, it must be somebody else. If I need to, somebody at the operational level. So I'm not saying it happened, but I give that's an example that when you say no to things where you know that this is not not in the right direction. It sets the tone in the organization. And yes, we have set that tone that we won't tolerate it. And it's the good thing. It's after what happened in Zondo Commission, and look at what happened to other companies. People can see that can actually destroy the entire organization if are left unchecked.
Yeah. Interesting. It's certainly the reputational impact on the company that was most impacted through Zondo has been pretty severe.
And you can see what the leadership is doing to try and rebuild that. That's not an easy job. Not easy for people who are working there. So absolutely right.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, what do you think government can or should be doing better from a sort of macro level to help the growth in the ICT sector? Is there anything you'd put your finger on to say, Minister of Communications or whoever you're speaking to in government? What can they do better to help the sector grow faster than it is?
Sure. I must be very careful. The minister is our minister, right? So if I say she's not doing a good job, she'll be hard on me. The good thing is that she comes from the industry, so she will know what to do. But I don't think there's one thing that they need to do. I think there's no magic one, but maybe a couple of things to think about. And I saw some countries doing that. So you probably want to have 3 pillars of how you want to spur growth of the ICT sector in the country. The first one, it's the entities that we looked at. It's government had targets on digital skills that they want to develop in the country, and they were quite deliberate about which areas they want to develop and how long it should take them, right? With clear KPIs. So how many skills to develop? Not necessarily for government, but just ways of developing digital skills. And some of them partnered with universities, some will do their own. So that's the first thing. The second thing, it's looking at, and here it's where countries in the East seem to have done it slightly better, is to look at which industries and which technologies they want to seed in those industries. So one that was very strong in agriculture decided that they want to introduce digital solutions into agriculture. We do have big agriculture, but I'm saying you decide which technologies you want to focus on, right? Which technologies, and you drive that part. Then the last thing, which is more important, is adoption of these technologies by government itself, right? If you look at our own government, simple things, and I know they are looking at it. It's how to automate us coming in and out of the country, when we fly internationally, right? So whether you make those automatic gates, etc., and so that's simple as that. And I know Home Affairs is looking at that, and I know because when I was traveling, I called the chief director or who was deputy director general who was responsible for that. I said, "Chief, the queues are long here. What is that we can do to help?" He said, "No, I'm looking at something." So that's one area. But I'm talking about so whether we look at blockchain for some of the services in the country that they provide, whether it's on when you purchase your property and all those kind of things. So look at which technologies that you want to consume. Then look at things like cloud and make a decision. You're gonna move into cloud. Yes, government has got some nuances. You want to move into a sovereign cloud in the country. You want to move into a SOC that is sovereign, but make a decision around all of those. I think if you had to drive that in all those three and put a policy around that, then you see a much better traction. When we were in Thailand last week, and I looked at some of their countries, very small countries, right? And therefore it's easier for them to do these things. But when they've got clear plans and targets on those 3 pillars, when I look at how much of their services now have become digital, it's incredible, and that becomes the norm. If you really think about it. Hyperscalers want to build in a country. They look at a number of things when they want to come into the country. They still look at power because that's important, but also look at how digitalized is the economy, because that will tell them whether they will have enough volumes coming into this. So Alibaba, as an example, we look at how much of transactions online, or how much of the transactions use digital payments, right? That will tell them that the enterprises need to build that capability, and therefore there will be growth for public cloud, as an example, right? So when you do all of these things, now you're creating demand for you're creating supply for skills, you're creating demand for those skills, you are creating demand for solutions. That all will help. If you remember back in the day, Duncan, when most governments were talking about e-government, remember those days, e-government, South Africa had a plan on e-government, and there were clear targets. At some stage, we were amongst the top 10 in the e-government execution plans in the world. Yeah, we subsequently dropped to 13. I think now we are in the 80s or so. But that same deliberate plan of that, and also being able to measure KPIs, that's what we need in the country.
Good stuff. Jonas Bogoshi, we are unfortunately out of time. As you mentioned, you are in a closed period at the moment. Telkom is reporting its results, I think, sometime in November.
That's correct, yes.
I look forward to reading more about, seeing more details about BCX's numbers at that point, and hopefully some further insights into the strategic plans that you've spoken about today. But thank you so much for coming to our studio and making the time. We really appreciate it here at Tech Central. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Duncan. Thank you.